Having had a long career in the United States as an actor, it must have been really satisfying to be able to come and be on a Canadian production that was a quality Canadian production, and a well-received one too.
Yes.
Yes.
Everything you said. It brought me home. Flashpoint brought me home. I left Canada when I was 20 years old, and there were so many American actors that I admired, so I thought going to New York was my way of paying them homage and soaking whatever they had, whatever magic New York City gave them. I was hoping it would give me as well. And I spent 11 years in New York and studying there, and spent most of my adult life as an American. And then I had kids in Los Angeles, and that sort of kept me there. But there was as my kids were getting older, I felt this nostalgia for home, and I really wanted them to know where I came from. And of course, like most things, ask and it is given. Flashpoint came up and brought me home. My kids spent a lot of time here. They got a sense of my family, my wife's family. And the fact that a show like that is so recognized internationally not only makes you proud of the work, but it reminds you how proud you are to be Canadian.
Now, the police drama genre is it's really well populated on the dial. Just about any time of day, anywhere you go, you can find a police show. Yet Flashpoint is somehow different. It's the way it looks, the way it feels, the way it affects the viewer. How is it, though, that Flashpoint is so different?
I think what made it different from other genres is it had a Canadian sensibility. It's just an organic sensibility because it was produced by Canadians and it was written by Canadians. When we were working with the ETF, and I hadn't really found a hook in Parker at that moment. And we as a cast were playing emotionally disturbed people while the actual ETF were going through their drills. And I'll never forget the first time I heard the voice of the negotiator, because they moved as a unit. They moved as this single force, 7 or 8 individuals just knowing exactly how to move together. And one voice, I didn't see him, but I heard him, and it was a voice of reason, and it was a calming voice, and it was just like, "Hey, buddy, how you doing?" That juxtaposed with guns and flashlights in your head were sort of like disarming. That's what I think Flashpoint brought.
Being part of a police show must have been kind of cool because it's close to home. You have a brother who's in the police services. Does he critique the show at all for you?
There was a moment where I read the script and I wasn't sure how it was all going to play out, but I had my brother read it, and the first thing he said was he'd known enough guys like that, so he really praised its authenticity. And I said, all right. He was a big reason why I accepted the job in the first place, because reading it on the page, I thought, it's like every other genre on television. It's like every other police genre, just blah, 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 blah. And then when I saw the final edit, and I saw Anne-Marie Latraverse's energy and Bill Mustos's input, they really added a nice balance of, let's say, estrogen. Do you know what I mean? They underscored it with this music and this, almost like a reminder of.
So we go from the way the show is shot. It's very real. It kind of brings us into the realities of what you guys would be facing as police officers and doing your job. The reality for actual police officers and other first responders in the field is that many come up against post-traumatic stress, and I guess this is why the Tema Conter Memorial Trust became a natural fit for you to become a part of.
There was a moment first of all, the connection that I had with my brother and all his friends, and the respect and admiration I have for police officers from when I was 16 years old, when I was a kid. Actually, when I started driving, when I was 16 years old, you realize they're pulling you over and just, okay, I'm sorry, I was speeding, that kind of thing. You realize that you have an innate respect for them. There was a moment in the second episode, in the second season, where I was trying to talk to this kid. I don't know if you remember it, but it was at the Canada's Wonderland. And somehow I couldn't save him. Parker couldn't save him. And that was the beginning of my own sort of post-traumatic stress as an actor. That's when I started dreaming about these characters. That's when I started dreaming about the characters that we lost, that we couldn't save. And then there was another episode where, again, I couldn't save them. And I remember thinking, waking up thinking, if I just acted better, I might have saved them. So there is that sense in this fictional fantasy world that I was sort of wondering, why I need to save these people. I can't do another 7, 8 seasons of this show where I'm met with death over and over and over again. And I went to the writers and I said, you keep talking about Parker as this great negotiator, but up until now he hasn't saved anybody. Can we see him as that guy? And so they started implementing that. They started implementing that a little more. But it was a combination of meeting guys like Jim Bremner, who was the consultant on the show, who had experienced his own post-traumatic stress, and he was, a veteran ETF guy, and just knowing where he had come from and what he had gone through and where he was. So there was just something inside that said, now I feel for these people. Now I feel for all of them. Then serendipity, or God, whatever, brought me, Vince Savoya and I came together. And it was Mark Ellis who co-created the show with his wife, Stephanie Morgenstern. Sent me an email, and an introductory email where it says, a man named Vince Savoya would like to talk to you. I met him at this thing, and he wants you to consider being the national spokesperson for this thing. And I go, oh, that's very flattering. And I sort of left it, as I'm wont to do with my emails, to let them sit for months at a time. And then I had breakfast with an old friend, and by accident we ended up talking about Vince. It seemed that Vince, who hadn't met yet, knew my good friend, and so that's when I reached out to him and realized what he was doing, and it was a no-brainer at that point to want to get on board and help raise the awareness of it.
Well, it's been excellent that you've been able to establish and maintain the job of spokesman for Tema Conter Memorial Trust, and continuing, even though Flashpoint has come to the end of its run, and even as your career is moving forward. Any clues as to where your career is heading at this point?
I don't know. I mean, I know because my faith is good. My faith is strong. Faith has brought me to this point. And for me to start doubting it now really doesn't say much for the guy upstairs. And so right now I'm between jobs. I know there's a movie waiting for me in June. We're going to do the Veronica Mars movie in June, and a pilot I filmed in Portland last January. We're waiting to hear about that. It's for TNT. But I always said that the greatest part about being an actor was enjoying the in-between jobs part. Yeah. That's what makes it different from the 9 to 5.